You're listening to Prosper in the Kingdom, the podcast where faith meets practical strategies to help you become healthy, wealthy, and wise. Join hosts Jon Cleaver and Wendy Lee as they share insights to equip you in your journey toward abundance, spiritually, financially, and beyond. Just a reminder, every situation is unique. The content of this podcast is for educational purposes only and should not be taken as specific financial or medical advice.
Man, talk about professional. I'm just saying. We're leveling up in 2025. I've been talking about it forever, and there's our new intro for another episode of Prosper in the Kingdom. Hey, Wendy Lee, how are you doing today?
Doing wonderful. Excited for our chat today.
I know, right? I'm excited too. So we started, kind of kicked it off last week with our whole series. We're going to be doing this over the next few weeks, and hopefully you're able to join back. If you missed an episode, go back and check it out. But before we dive in, show it a little love, give us a little click, a little like down there, and make sure you subscribe to our channel. We've got more resources coming out for everybody here pretty shortly. But we talked about God's blueprint for health, wealth, and wisdom. And that's what we're going to be covering over the next, basically 12 weeks. Each deep dive, each week is going to be a deep dive into a different topic. But today we're talking about the top 5 wealth mistakes that Christians make. And of course, my dad always raised me, never bring a problem without a solution. So we're going to be talking about how you can fix them too. So kick us off, Miss Wendy. What's the number one thing that we as Christians kind of screw up when it comes to money?
Yeah. Is believing that money is evil or having money.
Well, the Bible said money's evil in there somewhere. I've had a lot of people throw that at me. It's like, money's evil.
So one of the most misquoted scriptures, right? 1 Timothy 6:10, for the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil. So it's not money itself, but the love of it, the obsession with it, making it your God. I mean, just like anything in life, if you put it above God, then it's not good. So.
And I want to be clear. It's not like you're going to, create this little altar. Maybe you would, I don't know, not you, but somebody out there, listener, but you're not going to create this little altar and put a lot of, $2 bills and $100 bills on this stack and worship it. That's not what they're talking about. What they're talking about is making everything about money, making that your priority, making your faith about money, putting your trust in money.
Right. I think that's key. Yeah. Putting your trust in money. And I think, we see the corruption in our world and people that chase fame and fortune for the sake of being, famous and rich. And most of them wind up miserable because there's no fulfillment in that.
No, there's not. And having had success, you think that, okay, when I get to that next level, and maybe you can relate to this too as a listener, when I make this amount, or if I get this bonus or this next job, and make more money, I'll be happy. And then you get there and you're like, oh, okay, well now it's, and then also, as you start earning more, rather than paying down everything, you start increasing your lifestyle, right? So you're just, spending it, you're still in the same situation. But getting back to kind of what you were talking about, believing that money is evil, I've actually had conversations where, and a lot of Christians think this, they've got this poverty mindset that in order to be a good Christian, I have to be poor, because I know in the Bible they talk about give everything away and follow me, right? Well, that was him specifically talking to one person, okay, because he was a tax collector. Who was that, Wendy?
Are we talking about Peter? I don't know. You're putting me on the spot.
I know, right? This is your Bible quiz for the day.
Wait, in the first disciples, when he says, put down your fishing stuff and follow me.
Well, he was talking to Matthew because Matthew was rich. He was a tax collector, right? And so he was the rich one out of the group. So, and for you Bible aficionados out there, don't come and correct anybody. We're all here to learn, right? But, kind of going back to that poverty mindset, a lot of people think that, in order to be a good Christian, I've got to give away everything. And that is not it at all. I mean, God, our Father, and I've talked about this before, wants to bless us. You want to bless your children, right? You want to see them succeed, but you also want them to have their priorities in the right place. And I think that's really what he was talking about. So, I want you, if you've got that poverty mindset or feel like, you feel guilty because you're successful and you feel like, man, I'm not being a good Christian, or, even if you're feeling like you're being judged by other Christians, don't sweat it, right? Don't worry about that. I mean, follow God, follow, his intention for you and listen, but he wants to see you win, right? And, you look at money and, a lot of people get, oh, I want this nice car. I want things. We're a very materialistic society here in the United States. They spend billions on advertising every year, and banks want you to borrow money. That's how they stay in business. You pay them interest and stuff like that to buy cars, clothes, houses, whatever. But you look at the money itself, it's just a piece of paper, right?
Yep.
It's a tool. You can use it for good or you can use it for bad. And that's really where, we talk about the parable of the talents. We've talked about this before too, where, being successful is a good thing because you can in turn turn around and bless others, right? Bless your church, bless your family, things like that.
Yeah, I think if we have the ability, and I've said this before, but if we have the ability, we have the gifts and talents to generate wealth, then I think it's our duty to do that so that we can turn around and be a blessing to others. Like, do we want all the non-Christians being the ones that fund all the agencies that take care of people? You know what I mean? Like, we've got to do our part. And I think too, some people think, oh, I have to give it all away, right? But like, God taught me a lesson, like, it was honestly through Dave Ramsey's Financial Peace and through prayer, but like that I need to take care of my family. Like God's given me that responsibility first, is my family, and then bless others. But we've got to work hard, and like you said, it's a tool. One time I heard this explained this way, and I thought, I don't know, it was a light bulb moment for me. Is that it says, think of money, it's a tool, like you said, and think of it like a brick, right? A brick is an inanimate object. It has no power. It has no nothing. You can use it to build a house. You can use it to hurt somebody, break a window, right? Like it's the person it's the steward, right? If we're good stewards, the money in itself has nothing to do with it. So
yeah, no, and you're exactly right. I mean, and that's the whole point, is being a good biblical steward and aligning your heart with God's wishes, and understanding that everything we have is God's. You're just managing it for a certain period. And if you're a good manager, he's going to let you benefit from that, and because he wants to bless his children, right? So that's the first one. First of all, money itself is not evil. So if you're thinking that, dive into your Bible, really kind of do some, research on it and pray about it. But you'll find that, it's the love of money, the worship of money, putting God below money. Number two is, we talk about this all the time too, living without a financial plan. One of the key verses on this, Proverbs 21:5, the plans of the diligent lead to profit as surely as haste leads to poverty, right? So if you're just running through life, and most people we talk to on the financial planning side of what we do, with our reps and things like that, they see the same things over and over again. What is it? Well, they're not being intentional with their money. They're just making it because that's what we're taught in middle class. I make a bunch of money, I spend it, pay my bills, and then I try to save what's left over. And that's totally backwards on how you should really be looking at this stuff, and not having a plan and just hoping it all works out. Here's the reality of it, folks. You don't get a do-over, right? There's no going back at 65, 70 going, well, okay, let's try that again. I mean, you're there at that point. And, it's not just about building for retirement, which that's a big part of it, because you want to be able to take care of yourself and enjoy later in life. But also just building wealth for you as part of the kingdom that you can, again, going back and blessing others. And how do you do that? You get a coach, you have a plan. Yeah.
And I think too, some people will just go, oh, God's going to take care of me. I just trust the Lord.
Well, and don't get me wrong. I mean, he will, but I mean, he's also giving you a brain, eyes, hands to work with, a heart to. I mean, he's giving you the tools. It's not like you're just going to lay on the couch and go, oh, it's going to happen. I'm going to manifest millions just by laying here with my bag of Doritos. So
like I've been reading through Proverbs this year. I'm reading, a proverb a day each month, and over and over it talks about just not being lazy. Like God will bless us, but we need to do the work, right? We need to take the steps. And so, for us creating, budget, or as we like to call it, a spending plan, and prioritize giving, prioritize saving and investing, and then have that faith and trust in God go along together with the action you take to be wise with your money.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It's going on. And I want to be sensitive to, the time. We're already 10 minutes in. So, you look at that. How do you fix that? Well, building a budget, and I like to call it a spending plan because budget's like, cringe, right? So spending plan, I want to make sure I have money to spend in later in life, not just in retirement, but in my 50s and 60s. But I also want to make sure that I'm able to spend money today. And how do you do that? You be intentional about it. Now, we've recommended a couple of resources. One is, that I'm a big fan is moneypatrol.com. I get no money for recommending them, but it's a nice software. It's got some bells and whistles. If you want to go with the paid account, they've got a free version, but it's good stuff. Now, somebody mentioned something called Cube Money the other day, so I'm going to look into that as well and share it with our viewers if it's solid, but it sounds pretty good. But again, number 2 is living without a financial plan. So number 3, what do we got for number 3, Wendy?
Neglecting to build that legacy, wealth for future generations. So Proverbs 13:22 says, "A good person leaves an inheritance for their children's children."
Yeah, let's hit pause on that. I had somebody tell me, and I've actually had a number of people tell me this. It's like, hey, I had to fight for myself. My kids are on their own, man. Screw them. Yeah. And don't get me wrong, they were kind of half serious, half kidding, but it's kind of like, really, But as a Christian, you're responsible for your family, not just your immediate family, but like your family. Mm-hmm. And that's all of us. And so you start looking at that and it's like, okay, well, I don't want just to leave money for my children. There's a right way and a wrong way to do it. If you just leave them a big lump sum of cash, what are they going to do? They're going to treat it like the lottery. In most cases, turn around and blow it on a boat, whatever. And then the next thing you know, they got nothing to show for it. Whereas, proper estate planning. And again, we've got partners that we can introduce you to, if you're a listener, just reach out to us and say, hey, estate plan, what's the info? And we'll get you in touch with our team. But looking at what's the big key there? Well, a lot of believers only focus on today, right? The now. Mm-hmm. They don't plan long term. We just talked about that as far as investing, and they definitely don't plan on that next generation, mm-hmm. and especially beyond, right? A lot of people, we all know that a will is important to have, right? But only 10% of the people I talk to, plus or minus, have one prepared. And there are really 4 documents that you need to have if you're over the age of 20 and have any assets whatsoever. And those are critical. And even that is only just the beginning. Mm-hmm. But you can set up a solid estate plan. You can do it and very economically, but it's critical that we start, okay, not only do I want to grow wealth, but I want to make sure that I pass that on to my family and change the direction, the course, if you will, of my entire family from a financial perspective.
Mm-hmm. It's funny. Sloan and I were talking, I think yesterday, my daughter, and she was like, talking about last names, why do men get their dads, or why did you get their dad's last name? And why was my oldest named after his dad? Why do they have the same first name? And so I was talking about, I said, I'm wondering, and I was thinking through where that all comes from, but like that family is your heritage. And I was thinking back mm-hmm. to like the Bible. I just read, about Ruth the other day, but reading back in the Bible days, right? And your family was everything. It was your property, yeah. and it was the father passing on to the firstborn son, who passed on to the firstborn. Like that was generational wealth that they built, yeah. in the name of their family. And it's like, I feel like we've shifted to this point that we just, we live for today. We want to live our own lives, and we're like, you're on your own, kids. Yeah, and that's really not the way it was designed.
No. And what happens as a result of that, I mean, you look at other countries and things like that. And one of the things, especially here in the United States, we grow up and move out of the house, and then we start our own household. We have our kids, and then we expect them to move out. Every time you do that, what happens? Well, you've got new expenses, new set of, things like that, and all these costs and things. So all that money is getting absorbed, where a lot of countries, especially in Asian cultures, will actually have generational families living in a single household, right? It may be a compound, but they're all pitching in monetarily there. And so what happens is you've only got one set of expenses. Everybody's pitching in. And that's why, families outside of the United States, and I would say the Western world, really are able to build wealth faster as a generation, generationally, because of that fact. Not to say that you need to, have your family move in or whatever, but it's it's definitely worth talking about and looking at, how do we have that, and teaching your kids financial principles. I mean, that's one of the things that I never learned, right? They don't teach this stuff in school. And so it's, I started learning it on my own, but I would be doing my children a disservice if I didn't teach them what I was learning. Why? Because they would be doomed to follow the same mistakes that I made financially. And I share my mistakes, and we should be talking to our children about money all of the time. Not, hey, look at me, I'm so cool because I make X or whatever. Not from a egotistical standpoint, but how do you do this? How do you manage this? And talk about why would I, well, what's the big deal of financing it for 20 years if I can afford the payment? It's not about the payment, it's about what you're spending on it, and thinking like, saving the money in advance and all that stuff, but it's critical for that. So that's item number 3, is neglecting to build out wealth for future generations. And I would say everybody needs to have a solid estate plan. Even if you don't think I have that much money, why would I need an estate plan? Well, I guarantee the state that you're in more than likely is going to come in and take a big chunk of whatever you have through probate. And I'm sure you want the kids not to have to deal with that. And, again, just a few bucks and you can have a nice estate plan and not worry about it. But jumping into number 4, the fourth thing that really, and this is a big thing here in the United States as well, because of easy credit and all that stuff, is allowing debt to become a lifestyle, right? And, it's funny that we, certain people, and I used to be, wow, he's got a platinum card, I only have a gold card. That guy's got a platinum, or man, she's got one of those metallic cards, right? You throw it on the table and it clinks. And it's almost like, we're bragging about, ooh, I get so much credit limit, and things like that. And it's like, okay, how much debt do you have? And that's one of the things I want people to hear me on this is, focus on your net worth, not how much stuff you have and your personal property, unless it's like, personal property, meaning gold, silver, precious metals, or, gems, stuff like that you can sell pretty readily. Most people, they have their collectibles and things like that. And I'm not talking, specific stuff, but, my Longenberger baskets or this, that, or the other. A lot of that stuff isn't worth nearly what we think it is, right? To others. And you see a lot of estate auctions and you just kind of like, wow, this stuff is going for little or nothing. So the big focus on building wealth, true wealth, is looking at your net worth. And the reason you want to do that and minimize your debt is because it's, what are my assets minus my liabilities, translation, debt, right? And that equals my net worth. And you could have $1 million, but if you owe 900,000 in different bills or whatever, guess what? You only have $100,000 net worth.
Right.
But the key point of that goes back to Proverbs 22:7, where it talks about, the rich rule over the poor and the borrower is slave to the lender. And what does that mean? It's not like you're actually chained, up in Citibank in a local branch or something like that, working for free, cleaning the place up or whatever. No. But they're taking a big chunk of your paycheck every year through interest. And some interest rates on loans and credit cards, or if you're doing title loans, payday loans or something like that, the fees and everything else are outrageous. And that's taking money away from you and your family and your goals.
I mean, when I read that, slave to the lender, it's like chains. It really is like chains, because you're not free to even, what we're going to talk about in a minute, but even free to be able to give. Right? Because we're so burdened and tied up with debt. And so
I can't afford to, because I've got so many bills. I'd love to give, but I can't because I can't afford it. Well, no, you're using credit as a lifestyle, right? We've almost made debt kind of normal. I mean, it's like, that's how we are. That's America, right? I only have, $7,000 in credit card debt or whatever. I'm just throwing numbers out, but it's like, no, it's, if you've got debt, get out of debt. And that's one of the things, the gurus, Dave and Susie, talk about that as well as others. And I agree. I mean, there's a time and a place for debt. Not all debt is bad. Hear me on that. No. And I mean that. And there's a time and a place. If your debt is generating income more than you're spending, that's not necessarily bad debt. You've got to look at it. But, to have credit card debt and, buy a car that I can't afford and I'm going to lease it or, finance it for an extended number of years just so I can afford the payment, maybe you shouldn't buy that. That's something that, is that purchase moving you closer to or further away from your overall financial goals and getting your financial house in order? It creates unnecessary financial burdens that hinder your growth, as a person, and also the growth of the kingdom.
Yep. That's right.
All right. So what's number 5?
So yeah, finally, is not tithing, and we talked about tithing last week. We don't necessarily mean giving 10%, but giving first and being generous. So Malachi 3:10 says, "Bring the whole tithe into the storehouse, that there may be food in my house. Test me in this." I kind of love that he says, "Test me in this." But and again, I don't want to fixate on tithing necessarily, because we have another episode that we talk about that, but just being able to be generous. I think that's the key.
Yeah.
Be generous and give when you feel called to give, and give regularly. I do think, regardless of if it's a 10% or whatever, I do think that we should make giving a priority in our finances. But it's easy to let that be the first thing that goes. Right. And that kind of goes back to number 1, right? Love of money. Are we putting our faith in God, or are we putting our faith in money? Because, and I'm preaching to myself here too, but like when we don't trust enough to give God, some at the front, then maybe we are putting, I don't know, we got to check our heart on that, right? If we're putting,
and a lot of people get into that scarcity mindset, and it's like, well, I can't really afford to. Well, can you? I mean, and that's why it's so critical, going back to that spending plan, but, making sure you're giving first fruits, and whatever you're led to give, give. And if you're not, a regular church attender, or you don't have a church, make sure you're helping charities out there, right? You don't have to be a Christian to give and make the world a better place. I mean, I saw something over the weekend. I thought it was really powerful. It said, "Be the change in the world that you want to see." Right. And so if we all just did a little, imagine what we could do. Right. And that's the same way in the Christian kingdom too. But, unfortunately or fortunately, it all comes down to, money. I mean, how can you be more generous? Well, you got to get your own financial house in order. And that's what prospering the kingdom is all about. Let's get your financial house in order. Let's get your health in order. Healthy, wealthy, and wise, right? And then learn what the Bible says and become, closer aligned to what God and Christ really want for you in your life, and, making the world a better place. But, a lot of people, and I've been there. I have been there, folks. I want you to know that, where you skip tithing due to financial struggles, or, I'll throw in $20 as they're passing the little, I don't even know, what do you call that?
Collection
tray.
plate.
Yeah, collection plate.
Bag.
There you go. Yeah, I do the online stuff, so it's like it's easier anymore. But they skip it or throw in a $20 when really, is that the relationship you want? It's kind of an afterthought. No, I don't want to have that. I mean, I love my church. I love the pastor and his message and his whole team, and I want to make sure that I'm supporting them. And that's one of the things, some people are blessed with a lot of compassion and love to go and have the time to travel and go on mission trips. Well, they've got to finance that stuff. Other people have the ability to go out and make money, so they can bless, and that's how we bless each other as, brothers and sisters in Christ, working together for a common goal. But I'll get off my soapbox. That's not where I wanted to go with that. But it's just, again, I know when I was skipping tithing, I wanted that close relationship, but it held me back because I felt like I was being bad. I felt like I was not, doing my part in the relationship. And, when you fix that and get out of debt and you're able to tithe, even if it's just a little bit, but be consistent about it, it changes a lot of things, right? And the enemy, the devil, will use that as a barrier between, man, when God doesn't like you because you're not tithing, so you should probably just stay away from church. So, I mean, it happens, right? So, but again, I think just focusing on, I want to tithe. Just make that not an amount, but I want to tithe. I want to be generous, and start somewhere.
Yeah.
Start somewhere. Whatever it is, make it a non-negotiable as part of your financial plan, and really kind of dive in and make it happen. So We're going a little long today, though, but I want to just kind of recap everything. So again, the top 5 wealth mistakes that Christians make, just to recap. Number 1, believing that money is evil. It is not. It is a tool, no different than the shovel in your garage, right? You can use it for good or you can use it for bad. Number 2, living without a financial plan. You want a plan for your life. Have a plan for your financial house as well in your financial life. Number 3, neglecting to build wealth for those future generations, not just in handing them a bunch of money, but even teaching them how to do better with their money. And so they can avoid the pitfalls that you did. Share your lessons with your children, right? Number 4, allowing debt to become a lifestyle. Get out of debt, stay out of debt, pay cash wherever possible, use your debit card wherever possible. Or if you're using a card for points and things like that, flyer miles, and I know a lot of people do that, that's great. Make sure you're paying it off every month. Number 5, again, not tithing or not being generous in your giving. Fix that, start somewhere, start with a single step and just be consistent about it. That's the key. So what I want everybody to kind of take away from this is just kind of reflect, right? Think about where are some of these mistakes, those 5 things that you kind of struggle with. We'd love to hear in the comments, what your thoughts are, positive or negative, we'll take it all, right? And if you've got something else, you want to kind of do a deeper dive. And if you need help and have made a decision, hey, I want to get my financial house in order, reach out to myself, reach out to Wendy Lee. We've got an entire team of financial experts that can sit down and help you get your financial house in order at whatever pace you want on whatever budget you can work with, right? But next week, we're going to be jumping into another episode of the God's Blueprint. So make sure you're getting the notifications. Make sure you subscribe. Go out to prosperinthekingdom.com. Check out our YouTube channel. We've got our website hopefully going to be up here. I know I keep talking about this, but I'm manifesting it, right? It's going to happen because I know what's going on behind the scenes. But sometimes, the best laid plans still take a little longer. But, folks, that is it for today's episode. I want to say thank you. And Wendy, as always, thank you for all your guidance and input on everything as well. And we'll see you next week. We've got some events coming up too, folks, that we'll be sharing. We're sponsoring some stuff that you can jump in online to learn a little bit more about money and things like that. So we'll share those with you as they come up. But everybody have a great week, and we'll talk to you next time.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for tuning in to Prosper in the Kingdom. If this episode added value to your day, be sure to like and subscribe. And don't forget to share it with someone who could use the encouragement. For more resources, head to prosperinthekingdom.com. Let's continue building lives of purpose and abundance, one step at a time.